Have you ever caught yourself talking out loud, even though nobody else was there? Maybe you were searching for your phone. Where did I put it? Maybe you were rehearsing an argument that never actually happened. No, what I should have said was, or maybe you quietly whispered, "Come on, you can do this." Then someone walked into the room, and instantly, you pretended you weren't talking. Almost everyone has done something like this, yet most of us secretly wonder the same thing. Why am I talking to myself? Is it just a weird habit? A sign that I'm losing my mind? Or is something much more interesting happening inside the human brain? As strange as it sounds, talking to yourself may be one of the smartest things your brain does every single day. If someone secretly recorded people throughout an ordinary day, they'd probably discover something surprising. People talk to themselves all the time, quietly, briefly, sometimes without even realizing it. You open the refrigerator. "Didn't I buy milk yesterday?" You drop your keys. "Seriously?" You read a difficult email. "Okay, let's think." You stand in front of a mirror before an important meeting. You've got this. None of these conversations are meant for anyone else. They're meant for you. And remarkably, psychologists have found that this behavior is extremely common. Children do it. Teenagers do it. Adults do it. Athletes do it. Scientists do it. Even people who insist they've never talked to themselves often realize they've been doing it all along once they start paying attention. But here's where things become fascinating. Talking to yourself isn't all the same. Sometimes the conversation happens completely silently inside your mind. Other times, it escapes into the real world. And that difference tells us something remarkable about how the human brain actually thinks. Right now, without saying a single word out loud, you can probably hear your own thoughts. Not with your ears, but with something psychologists often call inner speech. It's the silent voice many people experience while reading, planning, making decisions, or imagining future conversations. You don't move your lips. Nobody else hears anything. Yet somehow, words still seem to exist. For a long time, scientists assumed everyone experienced this inner voice in roughly the same way. But modern research paints a much more interesting picture. Some people experience a vivid running internal monologue almost constantly. Others experience it only occasionally. Some think mostly with images, others with feelings, others with abstract ideas that don't seem to arrive as full sentences at all. In other words, there isn't one universal way to think. Human minds are surprisingly diverse. Even so, whether your thoughts arrive as words, images, or something in between, many of us occasionally bring those thoughts out into the open. And that's where talking to ourselves begins. If you've ever watched a young child building a tower from blocks, you've probably heard something like this. "No, this one goes here. Careful, don't fall." They're not talking to anyone. They're talking to themselves. For years, adults assumed children simply hadn't learned to think silently yet. But one influential psychologist, Lev Vygotsky, proposed something much more interesting. He suggested that this kind of self-talk isn't a mistake. It's a tool. A child who says, first the blue block, then the red one, isn't just describing what they're doing. They're helping guide their own actions. In psychology, this is often called private speech. It's one of the ways children gradually learn self-control. At first, adults provide instructions. Hold the pencil like this. Look both ways before crossing. Don't touch the stove. Over time, children begin repeating those same instructions to themselves. Eventually, the words become quieter, then quieter still, until one day, most of that conversation moves inside the mind. In a way, the little voice inside your head may have started as someone else's voice years ago. Parents, teachers, coaches, family members. Little by little, those outside voices became your own internal guide, which means something rather surprising. When adults talk to themselves, they may not be doing something childish. They may be using one of the oldest learning tools they ever developed. And in many situations, that tool never stopped being useful. Imagine you're trying to assemble a complicated piece of furniture. The instructions look like they were translated through 6 different languages. There are 47 screws, 3 pieces that all look identical, and somehow, one extra part appears before you've even started. What do most people do? They begin talking. "Okay, This goes here. No. Wait. That's backwards? It may sound silly, but research suggests speaking instructions aloud can sometimes reduce mental overload. Your brain has a system often called working memory. Think of it as a tiny mental workspace. It's where you temporarily hold information while solving problems. Unlike long-term memory, working memory has limited space. Only so much information fits at once. Talking through a problem can help organize that limited space. Instead of trying to juggle every thought silently, you move part of the process into the outside world. It's almost like clearing a crowded desk. The information doesn't disappear. It simply becomes easier to manage. That's one reason people often talk themselves through difficult tasks. Cooking, driving somewhere unfamiliar, fixing a computer, packing for a trip, taking an exam, even something as simple as saying, wallet, phone, keys, can reduce the chance of forgetting something important. In other words, talking to yourself isn't always a distraction. Sometimes, it's part of the solution. Here's something that surprises many people. Some of the world's best performers intentionally talk to themselves. Professional athletes do it. Pilots do it. Surgeons do it. Chess players do it. Olympic competitors often repeat short phrases before critical moments. Stay relaxed. Follow through. One step at a time. Those words aren't magical. They don't suddenly create new abilities, but they may help direct attention toward the task that matters most. Researchers studying performance have found that certain forms of instructional self-talk can improve focus during specific activities. Instead of letting attention wander, the brain receives a simple, clear instruction. It's a little like having your own coach available at any moment. Not every type of self-talk is equally helpful, of course. Repeatedly saying, "I'm terrible at this," usually isn't very useful. But saying, "Keep your eyes on the target," or "Slow down," can help organize behavior in the moment. Many elite performers aren't talking because they're confused. They're talking because they're trying to perform at their best. The voice isn't competing with the brain, it's working alongside it. And chances are, you've probably done exactly the same thing without realizing it. At this point, you might be wondering, if talking to yourself is so common, why does it sometimes make people uncomfortable? Part of the answer comes from how we usually see conversations. Most conversations happen between two people. So when we see someone speaking while nobody else is around, it can look unusual. But unusual doesn't automatically mean unhealthy. In fact, psychologists generally consider ordinary self-talk to be a normal part of human thinking, especially when you're planning, solving a problem, or organizing your thoughts. However, scientists also make an important distinction. Talking to yourself is not the same thing as hearing voices that seem to come from somewhere outside your own thoughts. Those are very different experiences. When people use self-talk, they generally recognize that the words are their own. They're choosing to speak. They're aware they're thinking. The conversation belongs to them. Experiences such as hearing voices that seem separate from your own thinking can have many possible causes and deserve careful evaluation by qualified healthcare professionals. It's important not to confuse these very different phenomena. So if you've ever whispered, "Don't forget your keys," or "Okay, let's try that again," there's no reason to assume something is wrong. You're using a mental strategy that millions of healthy people use every single day. The human brain comes with many different thinking tools. Self-talk appears to be one of them. And like any tool, its usefulness depends on how it's used. Encouraging yourself, planning aloud, breaking difficult tasks into smaller steps. Those can all be helpful. But if your inner conversation becomes overwhelmingly negative, constantly critical, or begins causing significant distress in everyday life, it may be worth talking with a qualified mental health professional. Not because talking to yourself is automatically a problem, but because the emotional content of our thoughts matters too. After all, the voice inside your head talks to you more than anyone else ever will. The way that voice speaks can shape how you experience the world. So here's the bigger question. Why did humans evolve this ability in the first place? No one can travel back in time to watch the first person talk to themselves. So scientists can't give a definitive answer. But several fascinating ideas have emerged. Language may have started as something we use to communicate with other people. Over time, the brain may have discovered something unexpected. Those same words could also organize our own thinking. Imagine trying to plan tomorrow's hunt, or remember where fresh water was located, or decide which path was safest before sunrise. Putting those ideas into words, even if nobody else heard them, may have made complex planning easier. As human societies became more complicated, so did the problems we needed to solve. Cooperating, teaching, negotiating, remembering promises, imagining the future, learning from the past. All of these require the brain to manipulate information that isn't happening right now. Language became much more than communication. It became a thinking tool. Some researchers even suggest that the conversations we have with ourselves may have grown out of the conversations we first had with others. Parents guiding children, teachers giving instructions, friends solving problems together. Eventually, the brain learned to play both roles, the speaker and the listener. In a sense, every time you quietly tell yourself, take a deep breath, or let's think this through, you're having one of the oldest conversations in human history, just with yourself. That doesn't mean scientists know every detail of how this system evolved. There is still plenty we don't understand. But the evidence strongly suggests that language isn't only something we use to connect with other people. It's also one of the ways we organize our own minds. So, the next time you catch yourself talking out loud while looking for your keys, or quietly encouraging yourself before something difficult, or replaying tomorrow's conversation before it even happens, maybe don't feel embarrassed. You probably aren't doing something strange. You're using a mental tool that humans have been refining for thousands of generations. The voice inside your head isn't just background noise. It helps you plan. It helps you remember. It helps you learn. It helps you stay focused. And sometimes, it even helps you become kinder to yourself. Perhaps the strangest part isn't that humans talk to themselves. Perhaps the strangest part is that we spend so much time pretending we don't. Now we're curious. What's the funniest thing you've ever caught yourself saying out loud when nobody else was around? Share it in the comments. You might discover that millions of people have had the exact same conversation with themselves. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior, don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you in the next journey into the remarkable human mind.